Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephen Spencer, and today it's my pleasure to have Barton Scott with us. Barton is a biochemist and founder of Upgraded Formulas. For the last 6 years, Barton has been the founder and process developer behind Upgraded Formulas. He's passionate about helping people address the stressors of daily life, poor sleep, hormone issues, low energy, the toxicity of the modern world, the extreme lack of nutrients in our food and soil, and the nutrient absorption issues that we all face through education of the human body's interrelationships. He also is proud to support charity water through Upgraded Formulas, supporting through every purchase, every sale. A portion of it goes to Charity Water, which is an organization that I personally support and donate to every month. Barton, it's so great to have you on the show.
Uh, Thank you, Stefan. It's great to be here. I'm glad we had time to make this happen.
Yeah. So we chatted briefly at the Biohacking conference, and I'd love to just maybe start this episode with your origin story, how you ended up um, running a supplement company when you probably had many different options in front of you of where you could take your life, and yeah, you ended up here. So how did this all come about?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I had always been interested in nutrition, but I was forced into this area because my mom started to get sick, and I was close with my parents. They had me later in life, and they did. I mean, kudos to them. They really, I feel like, did a did a great job. They had two, they had my sisters and then had me, and I say that because we were really close, and it's almost like losing a best friend and a parent at the same time, and that really scared me, more so than I think dying even myself. And I also started to have. I was always interested in optimization too, but I started to have some really, at first, sort of frustrating and then debilitating and then just scary levels of my brain not really working. And I had gone through chemical engineering. I was finishing the last part of it, and I just couldn't really believe that I was feeling this way, and and still eating a good diet, and was young, and it just didn't add up. And I did a bunch of functional medicine tests, just so many, like all the ones I could find, really, and had some good consultations. And I stumbled upon this hair analysis, and luckily, because it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't this way, I had a great consultation with this guy that's now retired, but it was just phenomenal. I learned so much. But one of the things that I learned was, for me, for her, my girlfriend's dad, who had all done this test at the same time, we were taking some things that were not, that were showing chronically deficient on our test. So imagine looking at a bar graph and you see some really short bars where there should be tall, long bars. And those represent some of the things you're taking. Like, I was taking quite a bit of magnesium. I was taking quite a bit of manganese in this multi-mineral product I had. I was taking chromium. I was taking selenium. And I was just really, really low in all these things. And I'd been taking them for something like a year and a half at least. And in their case, probably 3 months before, something like that. I'd really been changing everyone's supplement program for them. I'd been a sort of nutritionist all through college, because I started supplementing around 12 or 13, because I was in different sports like wrestling, where you can't eat as much and you have to really supplement. And so it all of this sort of comes together. You can see I have one lens is like, knowing the energy value of food from being in athletics, and then being a nutritionist, and then understanding the process side as a chemical engineer, and going, I think we can improve this. And I know there's this field of technology called nanotechnology, and there's some products out there that I think we can borrow some of that equipment and make some changes. And I grew up around a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and not to say we were rich, because that wasn't the case, but I had confidence in being able to go and raise money, and being able to certainly figure out the science part of it. I felt like that's the kind of thing that I would just get paid to solve as a chemie, improve a process. So really just making it happen. And yeah, that's ultimately what I did. And I realized a couple of key insights. And our products today, when you take them, particularly when you take our magnesium, you really do feel relaxed. You feel less anxious. You really do sleep well. And we have people saying things like, it feels like I slept on a cloud. I had the best night of sleep this whole year, or in a long time. I'm starting to remember my dreams for the first time. And all of these are signs of deep sleep, particularly that dream one, because you really remember your dreams on the way out. So you have to go pretty deep to remember them. And I just found that was fascinating to understand. And I actually learned that in that first consultation a long time ago, like 12 years ago. So yeah, been a long way since then, though. Yeah.
So you mentioned you learned some key insights. What were those insights?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the main one was particle size, and then the other one was stability. How to make some, just atomic particles really stable, and how to get them in that size reliably, how to be able to test, how to, just really those things primarily.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned particle size, because I just had a conversation earlier this week, or maybe it was late last week, with somebody. I forget the context of it. Maybe it was a podcast episode or just a conversation with a friend. I don't remember, but we were talking about the particle size of LDL, and how that makes
Mm-hmm.
much more of a difference versus just the number. Your bad
Yep.
cholesterol number is this, and your good cholesterol number is that. Well, that doesn't take into account that if you have really um, dense, small LDL particles, they lodge in the epithelial layer in your arterial wall, and start a plaque. Right? They're like
Mm-hmm.
bullets, versus if they're big and buoyant, they just bounce off like a beach ball. So there's no problem there,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so much
Yeah.
more important than just knowing a number.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thought experiment. Mm.
Yeah. So particle size is important for the supplements you take as well. Tell us why that's the case.
Well, what I realized was the red blood cell, if you measured in nanometers, would be about 10,000 nanometers, and the all the mineral supplements I could find were about either 5 or even up to 8 times larger. Which is okay if your digestive system is really ideal and nearly perfect. But I, it's not optimal even then. And of course, most people have gut dysfunction. I think that's obvious, and this crowd knows that for sure. Um, but you can have leaky gut even if you're eating a perfect diet and you're avoiding glyphosate and all these things, just from stress, just from working yourself too hard or overtraining, or a lot of different things. I hear a long hidden history of viral or bacterial infections and things like that. So there's just so many ways to not meet your nutrient requirements, and the most important I realized of those were minerals, because if you have really all the vitamins you need, but you don't have minerals, you don't activate those vitamins. You don't turn them on, and they're essentially useless. It's like having firewood with no spark. And it's really fascinating to study in this area, and I continue learning more and more every year, and um, yeah. So And now we have consultations, and we teach people a lot of this. So because it is dense for sure. And I think that's why a lot of people stay away from it, and a lot of people don't understand hair testing, which is the other aspect of what we do, or one of several other aspects of what we do.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that, because most people, I would guess, if you talk to them and ask, have you ever gotten your hair tested, they would probably tell you no. Whereas, at least in a biohacking community, if you ask somebody, have you ever done a biome test, like a microbiome test, or have you ever done a genetics test like 23andMe or Ancestry.com, or something a little more sophisticated like Simplified Genetics or the DNA Company, they'd probably say yes, or at least a decent sized percentage would say yes. But hair tests, that's kind of a stretch. That's usually only those folks who feel like they have heavy metal poisoning. Like, all right, I need to find out how bad the damage is, how much mercury is in my body, and so I'm going to get the hair test.
Yeah, we do look at heavy metals as well, and our tests does show that. And we do ship, internationally across the world. But the thing that we focus primarily on is minerals, because really, it's the key to balancing other minerals. Minerals are the key to balancing themselves throughout the body. It really is the best way to say it. And imagine you have a bunch of heavy metals. How do you plan to move them out of the body? Really, the best way that I've found that's gentle is by doing mineral balancing. But you have to have products that really absorb. So that's what I was saying earlier with this approach, is that you can't really overlook this area. To the extent that you do, you don't really have the foundation that you could have. And that could be bone health, that could be endocrine function. I mean, we tend to forget that in this huge world of hormone talk lately, which rightly so, that minerals are the building blocks of hormones, along with fats and amino acids. And if you're trying to make thyroid hormone and you're not eating iodine, your thyroid will never be what it could, and you'll have hair loss. Your skin won't look as good. Your brain won't function as well. Your metabolism won't be as good. You'll have cold hands and feet. It's just kind of miserable, like not like end of the world, but like pretty bad. You'll be constipated more often than not, or you'll alternate between diarrhea and constipation. And then your body will reabsorb all those toxic things that you're trying to excrete through your bowels. And unfortunately, then your body has to process and all of that again. And then if you have leaky gut on top of that, then and you don't have good gut motility, it's not good. So we need minerals. They're really key in this area as well. Fascinating, right?
So yeah, it's really important. And so if someone was I don't know, maybe under a budget, and they need to decide what kind of tests they're going to do. Do they do the GI map, the DNA Company, Viome, who knows, whatever else, right? Then there's the hair test as well. Why would they need to prioritize that? And why can't they get mineral data on how what their deficiencies are from a blood test or from a stool sample?
Well, stool won't show minerals, and I know you're just asking for the audience to hear, but
Yep.
Stool doesn't show minerals. Blood doesn't show minerals very accurately. The reason why is you really want to see the ratios. You don't want to just see an individual value. You want to see a value spread. You want to see, for example, if we're trying to understand a community, we want to understand the whole group. We don't want to understand an individual within the group, because that individual could be an outlier. But we really understand, just like in life, the relationships are what matters. And I mean, it just kind of blows my mind. I don't know why nobody seems to check their mineral levels until they actually have to, until things are really going wrong. And then they're like, all right, give me all the tests. And that, look, I have pity for that too, because I've been there. I've been there trying to help my mom. That didn't work out fast enough. We improved a lot. She improved her metabolism. I think she could have gotten off her medication, things like that. But, my brain fog improved some for sure. But when you have real extreme deficiencies and you have some level of gut dysfunction and the supplements you're taking aren't being absorbed very well, something like, if you're really, really lucky, like 30%, but more often somewhere between 2% and 20%. Something like chromium doesn't absorb very well in any form, which is just a quick side note. For all of our products, the form is such that it doesn't matter due to our process that we put our minerals through. And so I'll stabilize, for example, our magnesium with chloride. And this is probably shocking news. People might want to listen to this part twice, what I'm about to say, which is the form doesn't matter for us. I know we've been taught that for the last 8 or 10 years. And it's been repeated, and people don't know why. But what I always tell people is, what I realized was, when you get magnesium from food, the body doesn't go, you know what, Stephen, I'm sorry, I can't send this magnesium to your brain and help your brain continue to operate, or your heart continue to operate, or your digestive or endocrine system, or just like a cell in your leg that will otherwise cramp if it doesn't have magnesium. People think it's potassium; it's usually magnesium. The body doesn't go, oh, it's not in the threonate form or the glycinate form. We could take all of those forms and put them into our process, or we could take just one and bind it. And but the other thing I wanted to add was with blood testing, it's really us on our best behavior. And what I mean by that is that our body, fortunately, or for us, but unfortunately for testing, really pulls from our bone marrow and our organs, our tissues, anything it needs to do to maintain blood pH, because that is just the most vital in our body. So when we test that most vital area, it will be much longer before that area shows deficiencies. So it's not that it won't show a deficiency. It truly will be much later down the road. And I believe a lot of disease can be prevented. I believe a lot of health concerns and symptoms, and certainly an optimum lifestyle, can be really hard to just ascertain, because if you're looking at blood only, particularly, I'm not saying don't do a thyroid blood panel, things like that, like do a full panel. And I'm also not saying never do blood work. I think it's valuable, but you really need hair as another data point. And that's the reason why we lead with that. And it's the only test we do with upgraded formulas is, I don't want to overwhelm people. I want to give them what I think is the most actionable test. I like some of the other ones you mentioned. I really do. And I find the most important area, if you don't get your minerals right, you start to accumulate heavy metals faster and faster. And if we want to talk about the hardest thing to get rid of in a detox, is heavy metals. It will take years, even if you do it well. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds like daunting for some people, but hey, at least you know. And chelation therapy is not the way. Chelation therapy is really costly, really expensive. And I just wanted to come up with a more affordable and also safer route. Chelation is really disruptive on the body. So we do just natural mineral therapy through supplements, through consultations, through foods, through eating more of certain foods. But the soil's depleted too. So you're always sort of guessing with how much potassium a banana has, for example. And maybe you don't eat fruit. And that's true for red meat too. The soil, let's say it's cattle that you're burger, grass-fed beef that you're eating. that's still going to be raised and pastured at best on soil that most likely hasn't been rotated and isn't as nutritious as it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And when we look back 60 to 80 years ago, we see that across the board, whether we're talking about a steak or a salad, the nutrient content's about 40% less, and we're not eating 40% more. So we need to be working on topsoil for sure. And in the meantime, we need to be supplementing and we need to be testing instead of guessing. And we actually own the trademark. I know a lot of people use it, but we do actually own the trademark. Test, don't guess. And it's really core to what we do. And I'm glad for other people to use it, but when, it's just so essential to think about things that way.
Right. So if you also factor in pesticides and other kinds of poisons that are sprayed on crops, and this is really a strange thing. At least to me, it was strange to find out. I have a friend who is allergic to bananas, but by accident he discovered he was not allergic to organic bananas.
There you go. Yeah.
How weird is that?
Yeah. That's interesting. And you can kind of surmise what he was probably allergic to, which was actually the glyphosate or the something that the crop was sprayed with, right? And we think of bananas as, oh well, we're peeling the skin, but if the soil has been soaked for a decade or more, or even a couple of years, and then the rainwater's washing that into the soil and the plant's uptaking that, then there's going to be some sort of negative consequence there. And although I firmly believe we should all be voting with our dollars and eating organic or biodynamic foods because we're investing in longevity and better farming practices, there's still industrial organic, which is non-crop rotated, so where they're planting the same strawberries in the same field as last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. So we need to move away from that. And I think the only way we can do that is collectively we invest a little more in what we're doing food wise, and we take care of ourselves in the short term with supplements. I wish there was another way. I don't see another way. I also love Elon's mission to go to Mars, but until we get our own planet right, which this compared to say Mars is incredibly more hospitable, we should be able to. It should be great practice, I would say, for us to figure out how to improve our soils here instead of trying to go somewhere else, leave problems behind, so to speak. And I love the mission. I think a lot of people do, but you get what I'm saying? Like this is it has to be solved. Like, and we have to be giving birth to innovators, and we need to stop having children that are nutrient deficient. And the only way that happens if the mothers and fathers and men do contribute to it as well through sperm. Just we're healthier if we're healthier, and we have less gaps, so to speak, in our nutrition.
Yeah. So you mentioned strawberries, and I just found out a fun fact from a YouTube video that strawberries have been grown with flame retardant and tear gas.
Oh no.
To help them grow. And that just kind of floored me a bit. And I'll include into the show notes the video where I learned about that from the How Does It Grow YouTube channel. But anyways, have you heard about this? And
No, I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, another thing too about strawberries is so my wife Ryan, who's also a podcaster, she soaks the strawberries now every time that we buy them in vinegar and apple cider vinegar, and then you see all these tiny little things that have been killed and extracted or expelled out of the strawberry. like what the heck was growing in there? And it's pretty much across the board. Any strawberries that you soak, you'll get all these tiny little insects, like super tiny little insects that uh, are floating in the apple cider vinegar water.
That is interesting. I think everyone just like got a tip right there for sure.
And that's organic strawberries too. So
Wow.
I'm all about being more mindful about what you put in your mouth and into your system, and also being aware that the nutrient density of these foods is much lower than they were in decades past.
Hmm.
So we have to supplement, or we're not getting enough of the nutrients.
Hmm. Yeah, and to the extent that we push really hard, whether you're pushing in athletics, you're pushing in your day-to-day life, at work, whatever your work is, or you're just running a family and making sure everyone else is healthy, then there's just energy demands on all of that. You could be having a great life and um, adventuring really hard on vacation in Costa Rica just recently. And I remember thinking, like, wow, we are all just kind of burnt out after this week of just nonstop adventure. Did it with a big group of friends, and it was great. And yet, we're still, I could tell people were depleted. They're like cramping. They were, just all the signs of, hey, your body has been put through some stuff. So,
Yeah.
even fun, so.
Yeah. Where were we in Costa Rica?
We were in Guanacaste. Um,
Oh, nice
yeah,
spot.
the Pacific
Yeah.
side. Hmm.
Yep. Yep. Been there.
Hmm.
Got married in the Osa Peninsula.
Oh, so
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing place.
it was an interesting area. I heard that they also, even in Paradise, they spray their fruits pretty heavily.
Mm.
I've heard, and it's like, it's a lot to be mindful. I get it, and I get that there's probably seems to be a lot of rules in health. And my goal really is to simplify as much as possible for people. We don't, when someone does a consultation with one of our nutritionists after they've done a hair test, they're not being told, hey, you should eat this certain diet. They're just saying, hey, you're low in XYZ. Here's some foods that are, should have those nutrients. So try to incorporate more of those in your diet, or search foods high in and choose the foods that you're really lacking. But also, it goes back to that race, that relationship and that ratio thing that I think gets overlooked in a lot of testing. Like, frankly, people just don't understand that test very well, and that's one of the areas where I've really just become a subject matter expert in the last 10 or 12 years, and for myself initially, and then also for the company, and to be able to help people understand on shows like this that health can be easier. And I know it is tough. I think the first step isn't acknowledging that it's not easy, and you can do a lot of things right, and you can still feel so. And I know that's disappointing, and I empathize with that. I really do. I felt that a few years ago. I guess more than a few years ago now, but when I first started the keto diet, I remember trying it in like 2013 or so, and really doing a bad job of it. And I retested my minerals, and sure enough, salt was really low, and potassium, magnesium, all of them were really low. And we hadn't come out with our products yet. I was still in the like research phase and stuff. And I remember thinking, God, this is just tough to do. Low carb diets, especially I think if someone has if they're a fast metabolizer, they're going to burn through their minerals even faster. So that's the disadvantage of it. On this, and this is something we test for. We test for metabolism too on the test, and show people how they can improve it. Because it's not just about having a six pack; it's about getting rid of heavy metals faster too. So the problem with a slower metabolism, something you want to check on and increase, is that it you, you could picture a river and the deposits in that river. If the river's not moving very fast and it's full of dirt, the deposits start to drop out of solution. They start to fall out, and you get deposition. In the same way, you get heavy metals depositing more easily, and just you're not as quick to remove them from the body.
So, okay, so I'm curious to hear what the different minerals and elements that are most important from a diet perspective and most overlooked. Because, for example, I understand that people are loading up heavily on zinc because that's part of a coronavirus protocol to, stave away the COVID-19 infection. But then there are implications on copper because of high levels of zinc, right?
Right. That's a great point. A friend of mine got a bacterial infection in his mouth. And I told him, and he had just done his first hair analysis with he and his fiance were coming over to cook at my place. And I told Brent, I was like, be careful with that. You're likely to get a copper infection. And he went, "Oh man, you got to be kidding me." He said, "I spent 3 days last week finding a biological dentist, and this could have been avoided." And I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's also what I said like 6 weeks ago when we talked. But hey, I'm glad you found out now." And sure enough, we looked at his hair test. His copper was low. His zinc was elevated. And that sets you up for a bacterial infection. If your zinc's really low, then you could have a viral infection. So it's a balance. And this was what I mean when I say test, don't guess.
Right.
And just, admitting to ourselves that our intuition is powerful, and we can improve our intuition by testing. You can get to a point where you know all the symptoms and you kind of know, you have a good feeling, and testing often really helps with that. So we recommend testing quarterly. That's why our hair testing is affordable. And, it really does make a difference when you have a map.
Yeah. Well, what gets measured gets managed.
Yes.
Which is a quote misattributed to Peter Drucker. But
yeah. I like that quote.
Yeah. Now, what about mega dosing vitamin C? Some people are doing that.
Yeah. So vitamin C is tied to iron and antagonistic to copper. So similar thing there. You can actually set yourself up for a bacterial infection by pushing copper out. You'll make iron absorb even more. So if you're on that level, I think a lot of guys out there, if they're eating a lot of meat, and I say guys, women too, but guys, if they're not, they're not bleeding every month like women that are having their period. So women also in the older age as well that don't have a period anymore, especially if they have strong enough stomach acid to really digest the meat or any source where they're getting a lot of iron. Then, and you can get that from plants too, but I think it's pretty widely known now that, iron from plant sources is not going to be as readily absorbed. So, don't shoot the messenger. But, when you couple high iron with a lot of vitamin C, you set yourself up for hematomacrosis. And, it's imperative that you give blood, I would say twice a year. But again, you want to test your levels so you know. Blood will give you a good idea on iron, but it won't, you almost will never test for copper. So the dangerous thing is when someone comes in and it looks like they have anemia, but they may also have really low copper too. So they might have copper anemia. And then if they start supplementing, or they start really ratcheting up their iron intake, or their vitamin C intake, as you asked, then what happens? What happens then? Then they set themselves up for a really severe level of copper anemia that could kill them, and or could make life at the very least very, very just unsavory, and low energy, hair falling out, all sorts of issues, pain, numbness, stuff like that. So
Wow. And so brain fog isn't one of the symptoms of low copper, right?
It's, to a certain extent, it can be related. It's not necessarily going to be your leading indicator. There's probably other things that will be low, like your magnesium, your sodium, and even manganese. Your boron might be low, things like that. Copper does influence thyroid function. It also influences estrogen. So we do indirectly test for estrogen and for other hormones through hair as well. We get a really good indication of, does someone have really depleted progesterone, testosterone, or estrogen levels as well. So I mean, it's about a 7-in-1 test of things you're looking at. Not to keep coming back to this, but with each one of these questions, that I just want people to know, where they choose to test with us or not, that, hey, this is available, just so you know.
Yep.
Because it's important to know you need to be testing somehow, and it needs to be accurate, and hopefully it's not going to be too expensive, and hopefully it won't be too invasive. So ours is a at-home kit that ships around the world, and I really believe that if we can make this process a little bit less filled with friction, i.e., drive across town, go see your doctor, get blood drawn, get an analysis. I just gave blood today, actually, to get rid of iron overload. And, some heavy metals will come out of that naturally too, right? If they're floating around the blood. But one of the reasons why hair is pretty good for picking up heavy metals on that side of things, as you mentioned earlier, is that after an acute exposure of at least lead, there's a study on lead for sure, around the 30-day mark, you no longer see lead in the blood. The study actually cited 32 days, but at that point, you could have had an acute, so a huge exposure that could be crippling, and you won't see it if you test blood. Why? Well, it goes back to that same idea of your blood really is you on your best behavior. Your blood is trying to nourish you. And if your body is already in fight or flight often, or not that healthy, then it's going to shuttle those heavy metals into your tissues or fat stores, or both, and deal with it later when you're healthier. So it is common, as we see people get healthier, that their heavy metals will actually increase. And again, consultations will help people understand, why is that? That's what I'm explaining.
Well, if you lose 20 pounds and a lot of it is visceral fat, which is really good for you to get rid of, because it kind of chokes your organs. Well, that's a big fat. That fat store is a big repository for heavy metals, and now you've freed all that heavy metal.
Right. Which is why we say we get healthy to lose the weight. We don't lose the weight and then therefore get healthy. Because your body really won't. It'll stubbornly hold on to fat because it's so innately intelligent. It's going like, we're going to overwhelm your detoxification organs if we dump all these heavy metals.
Yeah. So. Now, you mentioned earlier magnesium, and you guys have a magnesium supplement. Mm-hmm. There are so many magnesium supplements out there, and different types of magnesium that you can take. Magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, or whatever. Like all the, I don't even know them all.
Yeah.
But what are the variants that you want to take in, and what are the ones that are not really that helpful to you, and why is yours the optimal version?
Sure. Well, it comes down to particle size through our process. So we take a form of magnesium, and then we put it through our process, and then we bind it with chloride at the end, which is a totally different end product than just getting magnesium chloride somewhere. So by doing that, by making it really bioavailable, magic really happens. People will write in saying they're falling asleep. As they're falling asleep, they're dreaming already somehow. And I've experienced that. I've experienced a lot of lucid dreams, which is really cool. And just getting used to dreaming a lot. And I probably went 5 years or more with not really remembering any of my dreams. And that's a sign that you are deficient. You should remember most, I would say most nights of the week you should be having dreams. And I know we used to think like a lot of things that if you did that, that wasn't great, but it's just not true. You want that, and you can tell from things like Aura scores, Aura Ring, or if you sleep trackers that, hey, deep sleep, whatever it was before, has improved 3x in the last week since I started taking this. And it's a pretty common result. We've had some people increase more than that, but 30 to 40%, pretty expected, even if someone's doing pretty well. I know Jimmy Moore, he posted this online, so I can share this. But he sent me a bunch of screenshots because he and I met the same day you and I met. And he started, and Jimmy obviously knows a lot about nutrition. He's written a book that's been really popular, one of the first good keto books out there years ago. And I remember reading his book years ago, and he improved his deep sleep consistently 30 to 40% over baseline each night. So if you're already at an hour and a half and you're improving 30 to 40%, that's pretty phenomenal. Now we've had some people that are at 16 minutes and then they improve to almost 2 hours in 4 or 5 nights. I know that seems crazy, but we keep seeing it. So we're doing a sleep study right now, working with a bunch of doctors in US and Canada to demonstrate that in a way that's really irrefutable. But right now it's irrefutable, just it's spread out, and we need a better way to visualize that for people.
Mm-hmm. So I know that Bioptimizers have this magnesium product. I take it every night. That has 7 different types of magnesium, and it's just really
the forms
amazing.
Don't matter for us because we have a totally different approach to the industrial process.
Say that your product, your magnesium product, is superior in terms of getting sleep benefits because they're probably not dealing with the particle size in the way that you are, although I have no idea what their process is.
Yeah, I don't know what their process is. Of course, I can't speak to that. And I like their enzymes. I will say that. And I've met Katrine. She's great. She told me she actually recommends our high dose iodine to her patients. She's one of the founders. And I think they have some really good products, but what they're using, as far as I can tell, is just the traditional traditional processes, and they're putting in different forms. So I think if you're comparing that to a traditional supplement, then it's probably better. I'm not sure if it confuses the body with a bunch of different forms all at once. I don't know one way or another. But I have heard that, but I don't know that to be empirically true. What I do know is that you can test it side by side for yourself and try, and you'll probably see the difference if you're tracking your sleep. If you're not tracking your sleep, then you don't know, really. You get a felt sense, and I know people do say, like, wow, I felt like I was sleeping on a cloud. I got the best night of sleep in years, things like that. And some of those people are already taking that product or other magnesium products. So I think it's a felt thing that you need to experience for yourself, and then you can make your own decision. But no, we don't need a bunch of forms, because, like I said, with food, I think this is a key relearning piece for people, is that with food, your body doesn't go and say, hey, you only got magnesium from this one source, and I can't use it for all the things in the body. The body figures out how to use it. So, so the whole business of this one's good for muscles, this one's good for brain tissue and crosses blood-brain barrier. I mean, ours get all of our products, all of our mineral products, Stephen, get into the blood, into blood cells without digestion, and it's stable too. So you don't even have to like shake our products unless we, like our new upgraded charge. We have an electrolyte product coming out. It has a flavor in it with some lime oil, so you have to shake that one just because it has a flavor. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yep. Yeah. I'm curious to hear what your Aura sleep scores are typically.
Usually around, I'd say low 90s is like a kind of a baseline for me.
That's great.
Mhm.
I would love to have that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I sleep pretty well, but I think there's other stressors. I'm always pushing hard. I seem to be, as much energy as I have, I seem to go, okay, well, today is the day where I do everything, so and just crush that to-do list. So, and then, maybe stay up later than I should. And, there's just, it's everything, right? Supplements, it's nighttime routine, it's morning routine, it's all the things, as you know.
Yeah, my sleep hygiene is not great. Like I don't wear the
Eye
little
mask.
blue light blocking glasses, even though I have several pairs, true darks. I don't wear them.
Yeah.
We've got red lights in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't turn them on. It's like
Yeah.
we're blasting blue light through the house at 9 o'clock at night. I know it's bad. I need to clean up my act, but yeah, it's. I guess it hasn't been painful enough for me to make that change yet.
Yeah, changing some of the bulbs and things like that, really help. So.
Yeah. By the way, you're wearing UV glasses right now, right?
Yep.
UV blocking glasses. Mm-hmm. What brand are you wearing?
These were a gift, so I don't even remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And do you wear UV blocking glasses most of the time?
After about 5 p.m. Yeah. And usually if I'm looking at a screen, usually I will too. I have something called Erlin's as well.
Yes, I've had Helen Erlin on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I have Erlin glasses as well.
Yeah. She's a very smart woman. In fact, I just gave my pair away to my friend Sean Wells, who you met.
Yep.
He put them on and he was like, wow, he's like, my brain. Yeah. He's like, this is great. Can I buy these from you? And I was like, and he's a really good friend. He's like, I'm going to be traveling for the next several months. I don't have time to go get an appointment. I was like, oh man. Yeah, I guess, so, but he's a really good friend. So, it's, I think you roles reversed to do that for me. So, yeah.
Yep. I'll be interviewing Sean in about a month.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then can you be taking too many supplements?
Yeah, I think about that often. You can certainly be taking the wrong supplements. And this goes back to testing. So, for example, people think that, I think a great example is calcium. So people might go, oh, well, I'm not supplementing calcium. And it turns out that if you're taking vitamin D, what does that cause? It's funny. A lot of people still can't answer this question. But, when you think about if you're megadosing anything, there's going to be an effect in the body that you don't want. So I'm not a fan of orthomolecular approaches anymore. I know years ago I used to experiment with them, drastically trying to quickly raise your vitamin D level through supplementation. I'm not a fan either. There's other things that are missing. I would take our boron with it. I would take our magnesium with it. I would take some B6. We don't make a B6 product. And all that's really important to take with vitamin D, and of course K2 as well. And then if you have high calcium, if your test comes back as really high calcium, you need to be breaking that shell down. And one of the ways our nutritionists can go over this with someone if they're interested, But one of the ways is iodine. So that's really important and often overlooked. And it's one of the ways we look at thyroid function too. There's a couple different ratios there as well. So, but too much.
Yeah, I don't take iodine. I don't take vitamin K.
Mhm.
I take a multivitamin. I take a bunch of other supplements, but yeah, I'm probably missing some important ones. I
Yeah,
just don't know which ones.
totally. Have you done blood work on vitamin D recently? Like the
Not
5-hydroxy?
very recently, but they're usually the scores are usually quite high because I do supplement really well my
Okay.
vitamin D, but maybe I have too much vitamin D because I was on the upper end.
Yeah, that's possible. And more importantly, it's causing calcium to be more readily absorbed in the body. And that really is problematic. So that's
Yeah.
that's one of the big areas. I'm glad you asked that, because people do really need to understand that. It's very important.
Yeah. Okay, I know we're about out of time, but I've been wanting to ask this since you just started bringing up dreams earlier in the conversation, because you're talking about like you did, you had some lucid dreaming, and you remember your dreams a lot more now.
Hmm.
To my questions are: do you keep a dream journal,
Hmm.
and what kind of big epiphany or amazing experience have you gotten out of lucid dreaming?
One of the, well, something that, so to answer your first question, I journal some of the time. If I can't figure out what the dream meant, then I'll journal about it, especially if it feels emotionally conflicting in some way. Then I'll journal about it. If you ever like wake up aggravated or something, then you should put pen to paper. It really will help. It's your body, your subconscious trying to like spit something out at you, so you can deal with it, so you can have this learning. Is what I've heard, and what seems to make a lot of sense, because we hear all the time the subconscious mind is much more present and more powerful than the conscious mind. And I don't think there's any other way that couldn't be true, with everything I've learned. So knowing that, one of the other
Oh,
things,
and then there's also the superconscious mind. We
yeah,
don't have time to go into that one,
super
but yeah,
conscious, and all the connectivity, and the thinking about like, I should call that person, and then I pick up the phone and call them. And I was just thinking about you, things like that. They're really hard to
yeah,
explain, and honestly, too, what's interesting is I've gotten better at those sorts of things just naturally as I've gotten healthier, through a lot of the supplementation. And I think it's because our bodies are these electrical fields, and all of the things we're talking about with minerals are boosting your voltage. Side note, if you're doing things like PEMF, different things like that, those can be great healing modalities. They are also going to deplete your mineral stores faster, so you want to be on top of it. You want to be testing. Just did a great podcast on the Beautifully Broken podcast about that, and Freddie, who you probably know, knows a ton about EMF and PEMF, and totally different. And we talked a lot about that there, so people can check that out. But as well, the yeah, it's a fascinating area. And the other thing with dreams is that, to know is, if a certain person that you know is in the dream, it's actually not about that person, and that's probably one of the more important things to know, that I've been able to learn recently through a friend, who's incredibly knowledgeable in this area. And dreaming, we here in the U.S., I know we, in a lot of parts, or some parts of the world, we kind of go like, oh, dreaming, it's dreaming, whatever. I know the Vedic tradition looked at dreaming as a third of life, and if you're not getting any value or any improvement every time you're sleeping, versus you're getting some amount of extra clarity, problem solving, putting pieces together, imagine how that compounds throughout your life, your awake life. It's fascinating to think about it, at the least. So
yeah.
those are my thoughts there.
Oh, that's great. I wish we had more time, but we don't. So our listener can buy your supplements, get the hair test, and all that. Where should they go, and how do they follow you and all your brilliance on social media?
Oh, well, thank you for that. Upgraded Formulas is the website, upgraded with an ED and formulas with an S, so upgradedformulas.com. And then if you want, we can give them a code too, and I can make sure that with the team that that's live by the time this airs.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and people can check me out. Ask Barton on IG and Upgraded Formulas on IG as well. And we have a YouTube channel if you'd like to see more videos while you're hanging out in your living room with your dog or cat, and you're just like, I kind of want to learn something, but I also am really tired and I don't want to read. So.
Awesome. We'll include all the links to these different places on the show notes page for this episode.
Cool.
And then the code for getting a discount, do you want to make one up on the fly? And just this episode will air in a while, as you've got plenty of time. But if you want to make something up.
Sure. Let's see. So get yourself optimized. We can do optimized at checkout, actually, for 15% off.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Perfect. Optimized. Well, thank you, Barton. This was really fun and stimulating and thought-provoking, and definitely we got to apply this stuff and not just get entertained. So I keep nudging my my listeners to apply this stuff.
Yep.
So hopefully they do.
Yeah. Love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Barton. Thank you, listener, and we'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.